This entitled mom is walking in a bike lane with her kids and thinks she has the right of way. It's only a matter of time before the laws of nature take their course and the inevitable happens. Happy birthday, today's your birthday, and on with the revamped show. For some background, my mother comes from a Jewish family, a very loud, shouty mother, and actually pretty nice father, who turned into a pretty nice grandfather too, and 2 older brothers. My mother had kids when she was in her late 30s, and her parents had her when they were in their late 30s, so my grandparents were already pretty old when I was growing up. From the time I can remember, my grandmother was blind, and both of them were pretty stooped and hunched over. My grandfather died when I was about 11, and my grandmother died when I was about 13 or 14. This story takes place when my grandmother died. When her husband, my grandfather, passed away before her, it came as an objectively crappy surprise. So in order to help support her, all of the siblings decided to give up their inheritances back to their mother so she could afford an in-home care assistance and other necessities. Remember, she was blind as a bat. She had the darn hearing of one too. You could never slip anything past her. It was maddening. When she finally kicked the bucket, we had never been close. She was an angry Jewish mother until the very end. It was finally time to split the estate, but they'd already settled everything before she died. The middle uncle, who we'll call AU, Awkward Uncle, that's really all I can call him. He's worthy of a whole other subreddit though, really did not at all want any of the inheritance that had been promised to him. He'd long since abstained from being included in the estate. He was a vet and apparently saved up quite a bit of money before he had to go on benefits, and he barely spent any of his benefits. He just let them sit in his bank accounts. He actually left me a very nice inheritance which I appreciated. I miss that weird heifer. So basically this left my mother as a recipient and the oldest sibling. The antagonist of this story. 'Twas my uncle that did the dastardly deed and broke up the family, said I. A little bit of background on him. He was, well, I didn't learn a lot of this until I was older, but the guy had serious anger management issues, unfailingly religious, incredibly egotistical, and quite chauvinistic, misogynistic, and with a sprinkle of racism and a whole lot of homophobia to go with it. He was absolutely infuriating to be around. He was basically the worst kind of Jew you could ever imagine. He was not just a regular at the synagogue, he was the kind of person who took a leadership role in the community and basically lived there. Whenever we would come to visit, I would only see him in the afternoons around lunchtime and in the evening around dinner. He was literally at synagogue the entire rest of the time. I think he usually woke up around 3 or 4 in the morning just to head out and go do whatever Orthodox Jews do. My mother and our family kept it pretty light. He was basically incapable of holding down a job and had gone through a stint of office jobs before basically returning to be a house husband. Except he did nothing house related at all. His wife still managed to do all of the cleaning and cooking and nurturing for the family, despite being a mathematician with several PhDs. To this day, I have no idea why she stays with him, but she does. Literally, she pays all of their bills, supports him and her 2 idiot children. Literally, my 30-year-old cousin still calls him daddy. It's repugnant. While somehow still managing to do big important people math I will never understand. When you stir all this up into a little witch's brew, you create the perfect scenario for family drama. Here's how it went down. The estate had been broken up into 2 pieces. Every aspect of my grandma's stuff, her house, her accounts, yada yada, had been divided evenly between the 2 of them. The house was sold, credit cards were cancelled, and there were lawyers involved on both sides to make sure everything was done fairly. It was actually several years after this whole thing had settled that he even made the phone call to my mum, that I heard as a little 13-year-old peeking in the doorway. Mum is MM, my mum obviously. Uncle is gonna be DU, Dingus Uncle. My mother is half deaf, so I pretty much heard the entire conversation, but she has filled me in on the more important bits that I missed. He called her clear out of the blue one day, as he called her very infrequently, and after about 15 minutes of niceties over the phone, the show started. So what's up? Are you thinking of coming up to visit?
Nah, actually I wanted to talk to you about the estate really quick.
Wait, Mum's estate?
Yeah, I
was going through some of the paperwork today because I was looking for something, and I noticed that we made a mistake on one of the accounts. Oh, darn. Are you serious? Yeah, I found some paperwork from one of her accountants, and my name was the only name on it, but we split the money inside of it. I need you to send me back that money. My mum, utterly confused. Why? Well, because it's my money. My name was the only name on the account, and we accidentally split it up. I was going to send you the statements I found so you could see. My mum's a lot smarter than people think she is. I don't doubt for a second that she remembered every single account number, or at least had them written down somewhere. She always saved every little bit of paperwork or scrap of legal whatever that she scribbled on. She's got files on top of files on top of files of just 30 years of family crap. I don't think this trifling brainlet knew that though. No. You remember we split that money 100% down the middle, right? Yeah, but it's mine, and I need it back. I bought a new kitchen with that money. You came over for the holidays, and you saw the kitchen. Well, I suppose you could start paying me back in installments. Are you out of your mind? If you recall, there were plenty of bank accounts that had just my name on them. Those ones were split evenly down the middle too. Mum wanted that one to be just for me. If that was the case, then why didn't she put that in her wishes? She told us this stuff when she was still alive. There's no way you don't remember this. Well, she told me and not you. I'm older, and she knew I'd need that account. Listen, is this going to turn into a thing? Like, should I call my lawyer? I can't tell if you're joking or not right now. This is around when I heard the yelling. You know, Jewish mother and all. I came out of my room and just sort of leaned on the threshold and listened. I'm willing to get mine involved if you need more clarification. Can they send you the papers? No, I can't believe you would be this selfish right now. If you're really going to do this, take me to freaking court. She slammed the phone down after that. I remember asking her if she was okay, and she vented a little bit, but otherwise I didn't think much of it. It wasn't until years later that I asked as an adult if he actually ended up trying to sue her. I thought he wouldn't. Apparently, he absolutely did. Now, it didn't go very far. There was supposed to be a court date where they were going to both show up in front of a judge or something, but my mother got a phone call. I don't know how court systems work out, and I really didn't ask for that many details, but apparently his lawyer realized that he didn't have a case, and basically just fired his client. Yikes, you have to be pretty greedy of a person to go after your siblings' inheritance money, especially after the whole ordeal's already done, like you've already split all the money. That right there is a relationship breaker. That would be incredibly difficult to even look them in the eyes again, knowing what they tried to pull on you. For context, I live in a very bike-friendly Western European city. Bikes are everywhere, and the city puts a lot of money into developing the needed infrastructure. Two-way bike lanes or bike lanes on both sides of almost every road, for example. For my part, I use my bike every day. It's my main way of transportation, and it's basically a part of me now. I try taking good care of it, but since I use it so much, something always breaks or wears down and has to be replaced. A few weeks ago, it was time for my brakes to not work properly. They still worked, but you had to really press on them to slow down. So now to the story. A few weeks ago, boyfriend and I decided to spend the Sunday morning riding our bikes to the nearby park, where we can enjoy some fresh air and not worry about wearing a mask, as it's not mandatory in open spaces in our country. To reach the park, we took the one-way bike lane that goes from our apartment, along the river, then down a hill and to the park. It was sunny, but kind of early, so there were not a lot of people outside. We weren't in a hurry, just enjoying our ride and the nice weather. As we're going down the above-mentioned hill, the gravity reminded me that it's more powerful than us, and so as expected, I was moving faster, without actually doing anything. Knowing the state of my brakes, I concentrated on the road, not wanting to be distracted. And then it happened. Just as the hill ended and I was on flat ground again, I saw a woman and her 3 kids about 20 meters, 65 feet, in front of me, casually walking on the bike lane and on the sidewalk that goes along the right side of the bike lane. I pressed hard on my barely working brakes and yelled for them to move, but in vain. So, being the quick thinker that I am, as I was about to hit them from behind, I turned left and hit some bushes that were conveniently planted on the left side of the bike lane. It took me a few seconds to get over the shock before I managed to concentrate and check the damage. By that time, boyfriend, B, was right by my side, and he was just behind me on the bike lane and saw the whole thing happen. He was trying to help me up, but not very successfully, as my clothes were caught in the bushes. As I was telling him that everything was fine, I heard a woman yell and then poke her head behind B's shoulder. I will paraphrase the conversation as it was short and there was a lot of yelling, but it went something like this. "Young lady, what do you think you are doing? You almost killed my kids." Me, a little out of breath but also a little angry. "Karen, why were you walking on the bike lane?" "Of course I was. Where else should I walk with my kids? You cannot walk with kids on the sidewalk. It's made of cobblestone. It hurts my kids' feet." B, angrily with a few colorful French cursing words that I won't write here. "Lady, how is you having kids our problem? My girlfriend got hurt because of you and your refusal to respect the rules. Someday your kids will get hurt because someone won't be as nice as OP and sacrifice himself. Stay on the sidewalk. Stop cursing at me. Families with kids have priority over bikers." Boyfriend was getting angrier by the minute, so I pulled him off and calmed him down, letting Karen go on her way. Seeing that we cannot do anything to make her understand how dangerous it was to do what she thought was normal. I wish I could say this story ends here, but unfortunately it doesn't. I scratched my elbow and knee falling into the bushes, so we decided to go home for me to wash up. But we live not far from where this story took place, and it took us about 30 minutes to go home and then go back to the park. As we were riding down the bike lane again, about 500 meters from where the whole thing with Karen happened, we saw a group of around 15 people gathered around. I had enough time to slow down without falling down this time, since I wasn't going fast. What we saw and learned from the bystanders made me very sad. Apparently Karen and her 3 kids kept walking on the bike lane, and as predicted by boyfriend, another poor biker did not have time to slow down, or just was distracted enough not to see them. So he ran over one of them and then fell hard on the ground, breaking his arm. Just to reassure you, the kid was fine. Shaken up, crying, a little bruised by the impact, but fine. We did not stay for the aftermath, as I was really upset by the whole situation. It could have been prevented if Karen just listened to us and didn't think that the world belonged to her, just because she had children. I don't know how the story ended, but the rules in our country are very strict about this kind of situation. The bikers have a lot of rights, so hopefully the biker won't get into trouble. Firstly, this should be out of just common courtesy, not on the biker lanes. But even out of self-preservation, why wouldn't you do that? Even if you thought, well, I'm here walking so I somehow have right of way, which doesn't make any sense, it's a bike lane. You know that bikes are gonna be on that lane. You know that you're taking a risk by walking there. Not only that, but you're risking the health and safety of other people as well. I don't know how she could have imagined this ending any other way than the way it did. This is just beyond reason. So I'm 18, I have Asperger's, PTSD, anxiety and depression, and a bunch of sensory disorders and phobias. My mum thinks it's just a bunch of excuses as to why I can't do something, and that I'm such a coddled little fitch. She says those exact words, and that people have it way worse than me. She rubs that in my face anytime she can, such as why I can't hold a job. I got laid off because of the pandemic, but since I don't have much experience, it's hard for me to get hired anywhere, and she holds that above my head and says, people with Down syndrome can hold jobs, you have no excuse. Anyways, my mum is 46 and I think she's honestly going through menopause. She has hot flashes and cranks the AC way down, extremely fidgety and moody. Right now she's been giving me the cold shoulder for over a week anytime I see her. Luckily it's not that often because she works 8 AM to 5 PM all week. She's super argumentative with my dad every single day. I get woken up by them arguing every single day. They also argue all weekend and at night. She always talks about how she hates her life and she's just miserable. She gives me dirty looks and sighs all the time. I literally did not do a darn thing to her. I think me existing just ticks her off. I ordered takeout the other day, Wednesday, from a restaurant while my mum was at work because I was hungry and there was no food here. My dad came home and got ticked off because there's food here. mainly his food, nothing I like, and I'm wasting my money on junk. My mum came home from work with groceries and saw me eating and was like, "It would be nice to know that you ordered yourself food." I said, "I didn't know you were going to the grocery store. You didn't say anything." She just rolled her eyes and slammed the door to her room. Then my dad started siding with my mum and yelling at me, calling me names and going off about what a terrible person I am. She does this all the time. They both do. Goes to the store and buys whatever and never asks what I want. And if I don't eat the food, she gets mad and yells at me for wasting her money. I didn't tell you to buy any of that, you chose to. My dad only goes to the store for himself. Forget asking him to get anything. He just yells. Then my mum told me yesterday, out of nowhere, "If you want specific food from the grocery store, write me a list and I'll get it when I go. Or you could be an adult, put on your big girl pants and go yourself." I would go to the store myself if a car was available for me to use, which there isn't one, and walking isn't an option. And if I asked to use their car, that's just another thing for me to get screamed at for. I don't have a job at the moment because of the pandemic, so I've resorted to making money with Etsy since March. I've purchased groceries for myself from Instacart that they were delivered to the door this week and got yelled at for it. "Haley, act like an adult and get in the car and go get groceries. You have all the time in the world. This is ridiculous. You're so freaking lazy and useless." Again, when I ask to use their car, I get yelled at for 20 minutes, so it's a no-win situation. Currently, my mum is making stuffed peppers and meatloaf for dinner. I have never liked either of those dishes, even as a kid. I went downstairs to look what was in the fridge and didn't say a word to my mum, and my mum said, "Listen here, you little fitch. I didn't buy you anything from the store. I'm sick of your crap. I don't care if you don't like what's for dinner. Either eat it or starve, you ungrateful piece of crap." Yes, she called me a piece of crap, and yes, she swears, and it's very condescending to me. I didn't say anything and went back upstairs, and she yelled, "What, did I hurt poor baby's little fear wings? You need to grow the frick up and act your age, not your shoe size. Cry me a freaking river." I want to order takeout again tonight because I'm hungry, and honestly, either way, I'm going to get yelled at. I mean, it is my money. Why do they care? It will show up at the door and I'll probably get screamed at and degraded yet again. I'm sorry, I would like to eat too. Honestly, that is one of the best things about having your own place, is that there's no one else there to judge you about how you're spending your own money. I mean, isn't that so crazy? If you've worked hard and that's your money, you should be able to spend it however you want. Submit your story to be read on the channel at VoiceyHereStories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.